Today we're going to see how close Charles was to his grandmother. She understood him when his parents sometimes had trouble figuring him out. So let's look into their special relationship. When Charles was 3 years old, his grandfather, King George VI, died, and his mother, Queen Elizabeth, became the queen. Queen Elizabeth and Philip then embarked on a 6-month Commonwealth tour soon after her coronation, and that left Charles and Anne at home in England. And it was then that Charles and Anne stayed with the Queen Mother. And Queen Elizabeth, though, she was part of the generation and class that routinely left the daily care of small children in the hands of the household staff. And according to the historian Robert Lacey, who also served as an advisor for the Crown and the author of The Crown, the official companion, the Queen believed it was better to leave the children in the care of nannies rather than drag them around the world. She'd been brought up in that style herself, after all, with her parents leaving her at home and entrusting her entire schooling to a governess and home tutors, he told Town and Country. So Prince Charles and the Queen Mother shared a love of the outdoors and gardening, and she also encouraged his interest in music, art, and culture. She was really supportive of all that, and we know now that it played out because he recites Shakespeare on the fly, and he loves painting and watercolors. So according to the dailymail.co.uk, the Queen Mother was a constant guiding force in his life, and they had a mutual love for each other. And one historian claimed that he found in his huggable grandmother the warmth and affection that was missing from his relationship with his own mother. So letters that show the love. When Charles and Anne left to join their parents in Tobruk, North Africa, the Queen Mother wrote ahead to her daughter to extol her grandson's virtues. You may find that Charles much older in a very endearing way, she wrote in March 1954. He is intensely affectionate and loves you and Philip most tenderly. I'm sure that he'll always be a very loving and enjoyable child to you both. And when it was time for Prince Charles to go to school, the Queen Mother was hoping that Charles would go to a school that wasn't so far away. She wanted her grandson to enroll at Eton, where he could remain close to the family. But Prince Philip had in mind his own school, which was Gordonstoun in the Scottish Highlands, where he had attended himself. So the Queen Mother wrote to Elizabeth, however good Gordonstoun is, it's miles and miles away. He might as well be at school abroad, she wrote. He would be terribly cut off and lonely up there in the far north. Despite her best efforts, Prince Philip won, and Prince Charles went to the rigorous Scottish boarding school. But he escaped whenever he could to stay with his beloved grandmother. Charles had a rough time at the school, but he stayed there, and eventually he became head boy and completed his A-levels. And Charles inspired to paint from Robert Waddell, his art master at the boarding school. So when Prince Charles was 20, he had an investiture ceremony in which he was formally presented the title of Prince of Wales, and this took place in the Carnarvon Castle, North Wales, on July 1st, 1969. 2 months before the ceremony, Prince Charles received a note from his Queen Mother, and it showed her support. She wrote, "My darling Charles, I can't tell you what charming and heartwarming things I'm always hearing about you. Everyone loves you and is proud of you, and absolutely know you'll be able to do wonderful things for this country, not only in leadership, but by being your own kind-hearted, loving, and intelligent and funny self." There was a time, though, the Queen Mother didn't agree with Charles. The 1990s were a tough time for the monarchy. There was troubled marriages between Sarah and Andrew, and Charles and Diana. The Queen Mother didn't like family matters brought to the public, and when an equerry learned that Prince Charles had been on the tell-all interview with Jonathan Dimbley on the broadcast the night before, he asked her, "Have you seen it?" And then the look she gave me, he said, could have frozen fire. A second later, she smiled coldly to tell him very firmly, some things are best not discussed. So I'm sure he was frightened for his job. So what the Queen Mother thought of Camilla? According to the uk.style.yahoo.com, the Queen Mother didn't approve of Charles and Camilla's relationship. Robert Jobson, writing in his 2006 book, William's Princess, said that it's a fact that Camilla's name was not allowed to be spoken in the presence of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. And Queen Elizabeth herself didn't really want to be around Camilla for a long time, because Camilla's role in the demise of the marriage between Charles and Diana seemed to be the sticking point of all the trouble. As Supreme Governor of the Church of England, whose teachings do not permit divorced people to remarry while their former spouse is alive, the Queen kept her distance from Camilla. But they formally met in 2000, and around 2002, things seemed to have gotten better between them, and they were spotted together at social events. In February 2005, it was announced that Charles and Camilla were going to marry. The engagement ring given to Camilla by the then Prince of Wales, was reported to be a gift from the Queen. It was an Art Deco-style piece that had belonged to the Queen Mother. So perhaps by that time the Queen Mother would have had a better relationship with her, since Camilla was important to Charles. After the religious service for the marriage of Charles and Camilla, the Queen said that her son and Camilla had overcome terrible obstacles, and they've come through, and I'm very proud, and I wish them well. So what did the Queen Mother think of Diana? Well, first we'll start with what Diana said about the Queen Mother. And in Newsweek.com it was said that she said, "His grandmother is always looking at me with a strange look in her eyes," Princess Diana told a friend via a telephone conversation that was secretly being taped and later sold to a tabloid. Russell wrote of a 1989 conversation between Diana and friend James Gilby. "It's not hatred, it's a sort of interest and pity mixed in one. I'm not quite sure. I don't understand. Every time I look, she's looking at me and then looks away and smiles." When that got back to the Queen Mother, things were the same between them. Then there was the 90th birthday for the Queen Mother, and Diana didn't enjoy it there at the party. She said, "They're all anti-me. My grandmother has done another good hatchet job on me." So Diana also felt that the Queen Mother showed more attention to William than she did to Harry. The late Queen Mother would always invite Prince William over for tea and talk to him about his future, and not invite Prince Harry. According to Newsweek.com, journalist and friend of Diana's Richard Kay also said in a documentary that the Queen Mother always made sure Prince William was seated in a prominent seat next to her, and Harry never was. He added that Diana's concerns were shared by Charles, who was keen on making sure the boys shared things in their early years. But later it was found out that William and Harry, they were to share the money from the Queen Mother once she died, but that Harry would get more of the share than William, and that was because William would benefit financially by becoming king. When Diana confronted the Queen Mother about her feelings, things got worse between them. The Queen Mother reportedly referred to Diana as a liar, and the princess retaliated by calling the aged monarch the chief leper in the leper colony. So I guess there was no love lost between them. Now next we come to the death of the Queen Mother. The Queen Mother died at the age of 101 at Royal Lodge, Windsor, March 30th, 2002. When the Queen Mother died, Charles kept vigil with the Queen Mother's 3 other grandsons, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, and David, Earl of Snowdon. It was during her lying in state at Westminster Abbey, and it showed how close they all were. In a wonderful tribute to his grandmother, Prince Charles gave a speech that left no doubt about how he felt about the woman who had been such an influence in his life. "I know what my darling grandmother meant to so many other people. She literally enriched their lives, and she was the original life enhancer, whether publicly or privately, whoever she was with. And in many ways, she's become an institution in her own right, a presence in the nation and in other realms and territories beyond these shores. At once indomitable, somehow timeless, able to span the generations, wise, loving, and utterly irresistible and mischievous of spirit. An immensely strong character combined with a unique natural grace and an infectious optimism about life itself. Above all, she understood the British character, and her heart belonged to this ancient land and its equally indomitable and humorous inhabitants, whom she served with panache, style, and unanswering dignity for very nearly 80 years. I know, too, what she meant to my whole family, particularly the Queen, to whom she had such a stalwart and sensitive support when my grandfather died, and when he was only 2.5 years older than I am now. For me, she meant everything, and I had dreaded this moment along with, I know, countless others. Somehow, I never thought it would come. She seemed gloriously unstoppable, and since I was a child, I adored her. Her houses were always filled with an atmosphere of fun, laughter, and affection, and I learned so much from her, immense value to my life. Apart from anything else, she wrote such sparklingly wonderful letters, and her turn of phrase could be utterly memorable. Above all, she saw the funny side of life, and we laughed until we cried. Oh, how I shall miss her laugh and the wonderful wisdom born of such experience, and an innate sensitivity to life. She was quite simply the most magical grandmother you could possibly have, and I was utterly devoted to her. Her departure has left an irreplaceable chasm in countless lives, but thank God we're all the richer for the sheer joy of her presence and everything she stood for. And Garth Russell wrote a book about the Queen Mother and said, apparently, she always said, "Well done" to people. I think she would say, "Well done" to King Charles, because she absolutely adored him, and she believed in things being done in a certain traditional way. I think she would have been very approving of the way Elizabeth II was buried. And as a new royal era begins, Russell says the Queen Mother would have argued with Charles in his vision for a slimmer modern monarchy. She wasn't a believer that things had to change. I don't think she would necessarily support many of the changes that King Charles will be implementing, but she certainly would support him, Russell adds. So Charles had a great lady as his grandmother, and she saw he was special. She gave him a love for nature, arts, and music, which made him a well-rounded person, and the Queen Mother loved her time with Charles, and that feeling didn't change till the end of her life. King Charles was lucky to have her in his life for as long as he did. He had a person who would always support him in whatever he did in his life, and that is a wonderful feeling. I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and if you did, if you could give it a thumbs up, it would help the algorithm and help the video to be seen by more viewers. And I wish everybody a great day, and I hope you tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you.